What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about the top 10 reasons not to move to Canada. Huh? Reasons not to move to Canada? You know, most of the time on this channel, almost everything I see is a very positive reflection of Canada, the Canadian people, its diversity, its beauty, and how wonderful everything is. But you know, even inside the utopia that is Canada, there has to be some deep, dark secrets there. And I'm and I'm here to find out. No, honestly, I'm pretty curious what these 10 reasons not to move to Canada are. I don't know if these are going to be legitimate, substantial, truthful. I don't know, but I'm interested to hear a little bit of, dare I say, criticisms of Canada. I'm not sure who made this video. Maybe it's someone who moved to Canada. Maybe it's someone who lives in Canada. But at any rate, I'm interested nonetheless just to hear maybe 10 reasons why you would not want to move to Canada. Let's see.
It starts. In recent weeks, we've been researching the migrant patterns of the North American millennial, where they're going to and where they're leaving from in the US. While doing the research, we noticed that a lot have fled to Canada, or at least looked into it.
You know, that's a great point. It's kind of a funny trope here in America. It's not even that uncommon to hear someone seriously when people are getting fed up with living in the United States and saying, oh, everything's going bad, it's terrible here due to one thing or another going on, politically or socially or whatever. People start saying in America, I'm going to move to Canada. Canada is amazing, it's fantastic, they get it there, they're nice there, everything's better there. That is seriously, a lot of Americans do say that, so yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that a lot of millennials are looking into it.
All generations are doing this, but the millennials are the bulk of the migration or attempted migrations to Canada. Moving to Canada is one of those things that starts getting passed around on social media more and more every single election year. Canada is the third most moved to country for Americans behind the UK and Germany. Our neighbors to the north are very...
Germany? Germany? That surprises me, just because I would think we would want to move to an English-speaking country. I never thought about that. Germany, UK. That's why I'm so familiar with the idea of moving to Canada for Americans.
Attractive country for a lot of people. When you dig a little deeper, might not be all that. After doing some research, I reached out to some people I know that have moved to Canada from the US and asked them about their experience. Two of them are girls I dated in high school. One is married to a Canadian and has been there about 15 years now. The other one was born in Vancouver, but lived in LA from like 6th grade and then moved back sometime after college.
Okay, so this is through the perspective of this narrator's friends who have at some point moved to Canada and they were living in America, or one lived in Canada, lived in America a bit, moved back. So these are people that should have some amount of insight into this. Oh, he has a fact here.
That girl, our breakup wasn't the most pleasant, so her reply to every question I asked was something like, sure, the taxes are high, but you don't live here, so it's worth it. Yeah, that was nice. Another friend went to medical school after the Army and has lived in Calgary for about 8 years. So they all told me some reasons not to move to Canada and some things you should know if you're thinking about it. Let's take a look.
Oh, wait. What's this fact say? According to a recent survey of government data, 5,816 Americans renounced their citizenship in the first 6 months of 2020. Wow. That is more than a 10-fold increase from the last 6 months of 2019, when 444 citizens gave up their passports. Wow. 10-fold increase in 2020 of Americans renouncing their citizenship. Yeah.
And some things you should...
Oh, black screen. Okay.
Number 10. Different stores and restaurants. Do you like Target, Trader Joe's, Chick-fil-A, White Castle, In-N-Out? You won't find those and other American regulars in Canada. They have others that will substitute just fine, but most Americans assume Canada has the same stuff as the States do.
Okay. I don't know if this is a deal breaker, you know. Americans do love their stores. We do. We're obsessed with them, to come to think of it. And we're creatures of habit as well. So we want our stores. We want our Walmart and our Target. Not your whatever you have there. Actually, I'm pretty sure Americans could move to Canada and get used to it. But I guess I understand this a little.
You may be in for a little bit of a culture shock. They've got good restaurants, don't get me wrong.
Tim Hortons! I'm sorry, whenever Tim Hortons shows up in a video about Canada, I just gotta yell Tim Hortons. It's kind of a rule now.
It's not the ones you're used to in a lot of cases. While researching this video, I came across a channel called Straight Talk. He was eating a piece of Pioneer chicken.
Hello, Chris Strait here with Straight Talk. This is Pioneer Chicken. There used to be 270 of them. Now they're down to only 2. And this was the basically bought out by Popeyes, essentially. Popeyes took over most of them. This is amazing.
Okay.
When I was young, they had...
What did that have to do with anything? And by the way, this just had me thinking, yeah, you don't get to have your favorite American places. Like, I don't know if Canada has a lot of Starbucks or KFC and our favorite gas stations or whatever, but in exchange, you get Tim Hortons and other Canadian stuff, so that's kind of cool.
had those everywhere. Now I guess there's only 2 left in Los Angeles. I love that place. But I found other options, just like you will if you move to Canada. I'll
Yeah.
leave a link to Straight Talk down below. Watch his talks on the US presidents. It's pretty interesting. Number 9, the costs are
Okay.
high. Just like the US, Canada has some extremely expensive cities. Yeah, really bad. Most urban living Canadians say housing costs are unreasonably high. Also ranks fairly high compared to other countries, not just the US, in its cost of living. That's according to Deutsche Bank's annual survey.
So, is Canada's cost of living high compared to the United States? Because that's kind of what's relevant for me in this case. And based on what he's saying here in that last sentence, Canada on average is more expensive than the United States. I actually didn't know that.
The average home in the US goes for around $220,000. That's 2019 numbers. In Canada, the average home costs $350,000 American dollars. Look
Wow.
at Zillow's Vancouver offerings. It's ridiculous.
Wait. What was the American average?
Deutsche Bank's annual survey. The average home in the US goes for around $220,000.
And Canada was 350,000? That's like 30% increase, 35% increase. That's pretty substantial, honestly.
American dollars. Look at Zillow's Vancouver offerings. It's ridiculous. You'll probably sit there with your mouth
Yeah, but are we talking about this, the little townhomes here that we're looking at that puts you next to a giant castle and on the river? Because then I'd kind of understand why you need to fork over almost $400,000.
open because it's hard to find a house that is under $1 million Canadian dollars, which is about $747,000. 1 million equals about $747,000. Just so you know, it's still grossly overpriced.
Okay.
Number
Okay.
8, you're going to need a job. Have a job lined up because they don't have a bunch just waiting for you in Canada. The unemployment rate in the Great White North was 5.67% in 2019, and that's according to the government statistics. In the US, the unemployment rate was 3.6% on
When was this video made? This was made in 2020, 2 years ago. Some of these statistics may have changed, but honestly, I think that's a concern. Whether you're living in the United States or Canada, getting a job is not going to be easy, depending on your field, of course.
according to the Obviously, those numbers are way off for both countries right now because of the pandemic. Some also complain that the wages during normal times are lower than they should be. There's a lot that goes into this one, but I'm just going to give you the basic comparison. Both countries' average hourly wage is $27 in each country's currency. But since there's a difference in dollars, Canadians make about 20 American dollars on average compared to the US's $27 an hour on
Americans earn $27 on average in the country? That's actually shocking to me. Is that because we're including the top 1% that are earning like $1 billion a year? And that kind of averages out with all the Americans at the low end earning $25,000 a year? And then somehow we converge on $27 an hour? I feel like it's some weird some weird result of statistics. If a huge amount of Americans were earning $27 an hour, that'd be pretty good.
On average again. Keep in mind, that is the average. Don't hit the comment section with some nonsense about $20 an hour isn't a low wage. It is on an average. Go to Khan Academy and learn how averages work.
Oh, wait, he heard me. He's somehow calling me out. He's like somehow immediately calling me out for questioning the average hourly wage as not sounding that bad. Okay, I'll take it. You got me.
Number 7, cheap flights. Flying is more expensive in Canada. That's just how it is. My friend the doctor
Well, based on what he said 2 points ago, he's basically saying everything is more expensive in Canada by comparison, right?
says he flies from Vancouver to Montreal a handful of times a year. He's also gone from Seattle to New York and Seattle to Boston several times in the last few years. He said at a minimum, he pays a couple $100 more flying in Canada.
Okay. So the relevance of this is that in this instance, for plane tickets, the price American plane tickets versus Canadian, the Canadian tickets are outrageously more expensive, is apparently the criticism here.
Almost the same distance. I looked it up and this is what I found. From Portland to New York City, $439. Okay? That's round trip. Vancouver to Montreal, it's about the same distance, like I said, $752. In
What? Why would this be? Why is this? What's the reason?
the States, if you want to travel across the country, you can find cheap flights from Southwest, American Airlines, Delta, United, JetBlue, Alaskan Airline, I think maybe, and a few others. It's not unusual to find flights for around $250 round trip from LA, Seattle, or San Francisco to New
Okay, I gotta interrupt him. Yeah, you can get those crazy cheap plane tickets, but you're gonna end up on an airline or an airplane where, like, the chair is rattling around and your seatbelt doesn't work, and the engine is kind of half falling off the wing, half on. But no, it's more that the experience in the cheaper airplanes are really quite uncomfortable and bad. And sometimes they will overbook your flights and all sorts of stuff.
New York City. You pay through the nose to fly in Canada. Number 6, you don't get to pass go with the IRS. This one's tricky and far beyond my tax knowledge, but I know it's a thing. Depending on your citizenship status, you may have to pay American taxes and Canadian taxes.
Huh?
U.S. citizens who live in Canada as Canadian permanent residents are still required to file an annual U.S. income tax return and also contact the Canadian government to see if they should file and pay Canadian taxes as well.
What? Wait, how does that even work? Would you be paying Canadian tax on your income after you pay your American taxes or before? And if you were paying 2 sets of taxes, you'd end up with so much money being taken out of your income, it'd be absurd. Is it really difficult to become a Canadian citizen starting as an American citizen? I mean, I would imagine no matter where you go in the world, that's usually fairly difficult.
This is according to the IRS website. I read about it and I thought, okay, that's totally wrong. I'm reading this wrong and I don't know what's going on here. So I called. It's a thing. There are some hoops you may have to jump through and file some paperwork, but it may be possible to catch a break on some or all of your foreign income.
Okay. That makes a huge difference. Whether he's saying, oh, this is a thing, you might have to pay taxes in America and also in Canada if you move to Canada, or you might be able to call someone and that won't happen at all. Oh, well, then that erases the entire problem. So it's actually kind of a big deal if you can call and have this handled or not. It's just kind of crazy, kind of wild if it's true.
Yourself a favor, read up on it, or talk to a tax man if you're in this situation. Number 5, it's not easy becoming a Canuck. The Canadian government acts like an anal retentive club bouncer when it comes to becoming a Canadian citizen. It's by the book, and there's no shortcuts for the average Joe.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of countries, it's fairly difficult to become a citizen. It's a big deal to become a citizen of an entirely different country, but is Canada particularly more challenging? Is that what we're saying here?
The process isn't cheap either. Besides just getting the ball rolling with an application fee of over $500 American, it takes time and aggravation. You might have to get an attorney and pay them too. For people with an education or a skill that Canada needs, there is an express entry program that may make the immigration process a little bit faster.
So there's actually some ways to expedite the process if you can kind of demonstrate that you're an asset to the Canadian economy or culture in some way. I mean, even if that's not totally fair to people who can't, quote unquote, provide as much of an asset to the economy or whatever immediately, I kind of get that. I kind of get it.
That's how my doctor friend got in. My friend who's actually married to a Canadian said it is still a time-consuming pain in the ass. And she's married to one.
Okay.
Number 4, universal healthcare. The Canadian healthcare system is not free. It's actually funded through a combination of personal and corporate taxes, and it's a good chunk of the taxes. But
I'm sorry, but I don't think there's anything he could say to make me believe that the United States system of healthcare is better than Canada's. Because the United States system of healthcare, although the care itself, the medical care you receive, is fantastic. It's great. The problems with the billing and insurance companies is just beyond horrible.
you don't have to worry about going bankrupt if you get ill. You hear a lot of things about the Canadian healthcare system here in the United States. Most of the time, it's from politicians saying how bad it is. I don't know. Never experienced it myself, but like I said, all I ever hear is bad things, and that's usually from the politicians and different news outlets. They don't show it in the best light. In several surveys, most Canadians, 85.2% on average, age 15 years and older, reported being very satisfied or just simply satisfied with the overall healthcare services provided in Canada's healthcare system.
Yeah, but that's a big point of distinguishment for me. There's a difference between, because I think the healthcare service, the people physically helping you, are good in America and Canada. It's really the payments that's the problem.
The healthcare system is something I specifically asked all three of my friends about. How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts on it? They all said they loved it. Well, the one girl said it's great. If it wasn't, I would have recommended it to you a long time ago. So that was nice.
Okay.
Number 3, it's freezing cold. About 90% of this country is above Minnesota, so that should tell you something. That something is, this is the frozen tundra.
Okay, now I've heard a couple of contradictory statements on this in particular. There are definitely parts of Canada that are seasonally not permanent winter, if that makes sense. There are many parts of Canada that are seasonally cold. They also have perfectly warm weather, but if I understand correctly, there's not as much middle ground as far as temperature and climate goes. There's just very cold seasons, warm seasons, and that can change depending on how north or south in Canada you are. But the whole country is not some frozen wasteland where everyone is living in their igloo. As fun as that sounds.
Other than parts of British Columbia, the rest of this country stays around 0 or lower during the winter. And that's the type of cold that makes you drop F-bombs when you open up the back door so your dog can go out and pee. Parts of this country can dip as low as minus 40 degrees Celsius. That's...
Okay, exactly. So when it is winter in Canada, it's very cold. It gets very, very cold. But that's just when it is winter.
the type of temperature that gets you wishing you didn't own a dog. The coldest temperature ever recorded in North America was in the Yukon in Canada in 1947. It was minus 63 degrees Celsius, which is literally the same as the surface of Mars. I'm not even kidding.
What?
Number 2, sports. Obviously, this isn't a big deal to most of you, but it's something all three of my friends brought up. The focus on sports is different in Canada. Hockey is king. And it's not like the US with football or baseball where maybe 40% of the US residents really follow either sport. In Canada, they all agreed that it's like 75% of the country at least casually follows hockey.
Wow. I didn't really appreciate that fact. I know hockey is big in Canada. Really big. I'm sure a lot of the youth of Canada gets involved in hockey, intramurals and sports and youth leagues. And people play it all that they can, and they follow it in the NHL. but I didn't know it was 75% of the total population just focused on hockey. Whereas in America, it'll be divided between football, baseball, basketball, then other sports below that.
And about 50% of them are pretty hardcore about it. Now, they have all the sports that we have here in the...
Wait, why is this a reason not to move to Canada? I just remembered. Wait, this is a reason not to move to Canada? Come on, it's just because hockey is really popular? I think we're kind of grasping at straws here. Hockey's pretty cool, and if you can still follow your American football and baseball from Canada if you really want, I guess the boys down at the local bar won't be like able to talk to you about it over a big fat beer, but that's like the worst possible thing that could happen to you.
United States, but nothing compares to hockey. The doctor friend said that he'd worked in some small towns of like 3,000 or 4,000 people that have hockey teams. And he said, if it's a home game, nobody's at home. You could probably walk into any house in town, cook yourself a meal, because nobody's going to be home during the game and nobody locks their doors. He says if it goes into OT, you might be able to squeeze in a bubble bath and leave before anyone knows you were there.
Wait, no one locks their doors? Wow, what a trusting, caring society Canada has. I'm sure some people lock their doors, but a majority of people are following hockey in Canada. Interesting, but that's like saying, oh, don't move to America, because then everyone will be talking about football for most of the year. It's like, that's hardly a reason not to move somewhere.
You might be able to squeeze in a bubble bath and leave before anyone knows you were there. And number 1. Credit history. Now this one's going to be short because it's something that you should know about and you should really research on your own. I don't have the time. It would take me an hour to explain the whole process to you, but it's something you should be aware of. If you have no Canadian credit history or local references like most immigrants, you may be at a disadvantage when you're trying to rent a place. That has been a big problem for a lot of people moving to Canada. So I was told by 2 of the friends that moved there that didn't have someone they were moving in with, they said that this was a big problem for them.
Wow, this might be a good tip, honestly. One of the better ones. You need Canadian credit history. Even if you have a great credit report in the United States, that doesn't matter. Or maybe it matters a little. You'd think they would consider that a little bit.
They had to jump through a bunch of hoops and do all kinds of things just to get a place to stay when they first got there. So it's definitely something you should, be aware of and look into if you are going to move there.
Yeah. That makes sense.
All right, so that's today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information.
I did enjoy that, actually. I did. That was by World According to Briggs. I liked that. I really did like that. I liked, being a little self-reflective here as far as Canada goes. A lot of what I look at in Canada is so great, beautiful places, amazing people, diverse culture, and, I think it was overdue just to maybe consider some of the drawbacks. But honestly, as far as this video's list goes, I don't know how many of these were actually legitimate, things that you would consider to be serious drawbacks of living in Canada. One of them was that there's different stores. You're gonna have to get used to the Canadian version of grocery stores and hardware stores. Not too much of a problem. The ones about the higher cost of living and jobs being harder to get, higher cost flights and homes and taxes, that stuff is more reasonable to me, if true. If I'm trusting what was said here, that is definitely one of the more valid criticisms. Citizenship tests is hard. Universal health care, I don't care what he says. It has to be better than the United States. It's cold, yeah, but not permanently. Sports, come on. I could learn to appreciate some hockey. I don't know if that's the end of the world. The credit history, that was probably one of the better tips. So yeah, this was kind of a mixed bag for me. Some good points, some points that really didn't make sense at all, but I was really entertained by this video. I liked the concept of it. And if you enjoyed the concept of this video and you liked it, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada, Canadian culture, places, things there I've never ever seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.